Conversations today, my guest is a man who topped the civil services examinations, rose to the highest rungs of the bureaucracy, served the cause of democracy with distinction, even if occasional controversy, though he gave himself a second division mark for that, and he left a large, admiring constituency wondering what next when he retired in December. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. T.N. Seshan. Mr. Seshan, what next?
Well, I wish I could have a very simple and clean answer for you. I don't have one. I'm in search of something. I know several things which will not be. I have said this before. Let me say this again. I am not going to join any party, political party. I am not going to start a political party. In the immediate prospect, I don't see my standing for elections to parliament or whatever. Certain things will continue, but those are not primary occupations. I teach, I'll continue to teach. I do astrology, I'll continue to do astrology. I completely spend a lot of time on the internet, I'll continue to do that. I spend a great deal of my time providing counseling to young people, but none of these are really first-line occupations. The first-line occupation to which I am moving into is probably my trust called Deshbhakta. We are in search of what to do, how to do it, how to organize it, all that. So I'll leave it at that. And,
do you have a sense of what this trust might do, even in general terms?
Yes. In fact, if I may say so, in the very short order, in the next couple of days, we are meeting in a national meeting in Bombay. I've invited people who are not politicians, who are not controversial people, 100 of them, to come and discuss this in Bombay. We have set 10 possible points of action. Not necessarily all 10 will be acted upon. We have said 10. Very rapidly, those 10 are fighting of corruption, administrative reform, electoral reform, judicial reform, educational reform, a helpline to help people or communities in distress, an action to promote tolerance, an action to provide support to honest civil servants who are in harassment, an effort to restore internal security and peace, and finally, more important than any of these, is arousing national awareness on all of these. Those are the 10 points. We intend to have a completely decentralized structure. Societies at district level, block level, town level. And we will do all kinds of action, but not. Certain things are taboo. We will not resort to violence. We will not attack political parties. We will not attack individuals politically, individually. Corruption is an enemy. But Mr. X is corrupt, A party is corrupt. It's not our target. We are not thinking of alternative government. So if somebody is corrupt, we'll go and tell him, look, you are being sounded as being corrupt. We are watching you. Doesn't help, we'll use publicity to deal with him. That doesn't help, we may go take him to court. If none of it works, there is a good old method. We will do satyagraha. So these are the items, the methods, the organization. The central organization is not going to ask money from the field formations, because money collection is not the objective. In fact, where there is money, there is trouble. So that is a broad thing, and discussions with varieties of people have brought this as somewhat of a minimum commonly accepted thing, but it will get frozen in Bombay in the next 2-3 days.
Who are the kind of people who are coming to this meeting? There's been a celebrated meeting you had with Anna Sahib Hazare and some other sort of activists.
Well, as I said, we have invited all the people who have sent to us positive kinds of ideas. Some are well-known names, some are not so well-known names. As I said, the only people excluded are the political people. People who have a clearly established public record of malfeasance, of being wrongdoers. Rather than that, we have invited a very wide variety of NGOs, all kinds of people. And the Bombay meeting is only the first of the meetings. Then we will tighten up all the items of work, the program, the organization, send it out, and then go state by state, district by district.
Are you disappointed that some of the political possibilities that had been articulated earlier on about the possibility of holding, sort of becoming president or other office, are you disappointed that
No, Rajiv, I must tell you that for all the picture that's painted, I am a very philosophical person. On the other hand, of course, I must say before I finish the sentence, I am an ambitious person. I have said before, and I have been misunderstood for saying this, that having served in 3 years as a teacher and 42 years in public work, now if I get into a job, it will be only a job where I clearly perceive a physical strength to do something good. Not a job which will give me the trappings of office once again. A government car, a government telephone, staff to deal with, a certain amount of treatment in airlines and trains. And I have no longer any desire for it. That is why mention was made of presidentships and prime ministerships. But I have my feet planted firmly on the ground. And I would attempt to do any of these only if it looks as if it's vaguely possible. Otherwise, to make a fool of yourself and say, I also contested, I got 3 out of 100 votes, is not the kind of thing I would do. But I must tell you frankly, at the risk of being misunderstood by my readers, by our listeners, that the number of people who walk up to me, even today, this morning, I was at a college, annual day distribution, prize distribution day. At the end of it, local gentleman got onto the mic and he spoke for 20 minutes about the need to make me President of India. I'm aware of this sense among the people, but it's not the people who vote. I know the presidential election system consists of a college consisting of members of parliament and members of the state legislature who, between them, do the election. That election is due in May, June. So when you ask me, am I disappointed? I was never appointed, if that is the opposite of disappointment. I had not built any castle in the air. There are friends who say that I should do this or that or something else. I tell them, you keep trying. If you succeed, fine.
Do you feel that you got a fair deal, say, from the media that was reporting this process?
I think on the whole, the media did me more good than anything else. We kept sparring with each other. They didn't understand me, I didn't understand them. I suppose in any group of people, there are people who will be fair, somewhat unfair, utterly unfair. So I would say in the summation, I would say the media were extremely good to me in the sense that whether they intended it or not, they painted me in pictures, in colors and sizes which were extraordinarily larger, deeper than what was really my due. So if today I get the kind of attention which I get wherever I go, certainly a very great portion of it is due to the media. And I think on balance, they were good to me.
Mr. Seshan, you mentioned your interest in astrology. How far does astrology govern your life?
Let me put it this way. There are, in my entire world of astrology, there are 2 universes. The one universe covers my wife and myself. As you know, we have no children. So that universe is only the 2 of us. The rest of the universe of astrology covers everybody else, presidents, prime ministers, political people, young people, old people, known people, unknown people. Now, surely your question is not at what my astrology does insofar as I apply it to other people.
No, what it does to you.
What it does to me.
To what extent does it guide
the
your
answer is, A, as a matter of absolutely deliberate policy, I refuse to look at my own chart or that of my wife. Because in my view, your private desires then start overruling your wisdom. If I can call astrology a part of wisdom, your ability to see whatever you can see. Your prejudices, oh, you want to become this, you get this. And you want tomorrow to be a good tomorrow, so you say you try to find reasons why the astrology shows a good tomorrow. So it becomes prejudiced, and therefore I do not apply astrology of my own to myself. But insofar as other astrologers look at my chart and tell me, my answer is that my long-term perspectives are guided by astrology. But I do not permit astrology to tell me, as unfortunately it does some people, saying, what shall I do at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning? What shall I do at 12 o'clock? Shall I sign this paper? Shall I do that step? No. The long guidelines I certainly pick up from astrology. And I must tell you that in 64 years of my life, long directions which astrology has given me have never been wrong, have never ever been wrong.
What does it portend for the future?
You would be surprised. There are one astrologer too many who says that I haven't yet done with myself, and that I still have work to do for the country. Unfortunately, that produces a peculiar sum. The sum adds up like this, as I said, I can't think of a job in government, I can't think of working under government. So what is the job which I will hold, which will give me, shall we say, something to do? I am unable to think of this. So in fact, today astrology has got me flummoxed, because it says you're not done, you won't be allowed to retire, you will be made to work. Every astrologer comes and says you will die in harness. You'll die, drop dead while working. You won't die peacefully in bed. So what, I mean, the simple answer to your question, what does astrology say? What astrology says is that I'm going to get back to work.
Does your interest in religion and philosophy support you or enable you to engage in this process of surrendering to?
Yes, it does. It does. In fact, I mean, people have understandably a concept of Seshan as an aggressive, combative, short-tempered, all kinds of equations. Few know that within the walls of my private fortress, for example, I had the last 2 years in the Election Commission were certainly not very peaceful times. But believe me when I tell you, I think that if I may use a simple word like that, the problems I went through, it used to appear Election Commission, A walks out, B does something, B issues a statement, C does something else. All this I had worked on with an amount of philosophy which few people understood, because they don't touch the core of my existence. In my view, those were the good Lord's contributions to softening me up. I still needed to be softened up, and I got softened up. The amount of strength I derived from one single book, the Bhagavad Gita and its various portions, is unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's impertinence to say so, and I'm not saying I have succeeded, but I work as the kindergarten level of trying to live the Bhagavad Gita.
You've also drawn inspiration from the previous Shankaracharya.
Absolutely.
In what manner did he sort of touch you?
I mean, it was affection of the highest order. It was a beaming munificence. I can tell you umpteen stories about my whatever I received from the Acharya of Kanchi who passed away. Few people know that I did not meet him at all, till I was at the fag end of my cabinet secretary's job, 89 December. I remember on a November night, somebody came and said, the Acharya wants to see you. And I went of a night to see him because the government was in transition. Mr. Rajiv Gandhi had been defeated. Mr. V.P. Singh was going to be sworn in. This was 29th November 1989. And I sent word back saying, look, I can't leave Delhi because, I'm not saying that I'm the Prime Minister, but when the Prime Minister is in transition, the Cabinet Secretary holds a certain larger responsibility. If there was a train accident, if something else happened, the Cabinet Secretary would certainly be seriously at fault if he was visiting Kanchipuram instead of sitting at Delhi, watching whatever he needed to watch. So I got an amazing message from the Acharya saying, I will see you at night. You arrive at Madras at 10 p.m. I'll finish with you during the night and you get back at 8 o'clock in the morning and you take whatever permissions are necessary. So this is what exactly I did. I took permission from the President, Mr. Venkatraman. I took permission from Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. He was defeated, but he was still in the chair of the Prime Minister. I left at 7 o'clock, reached Madras at 10, drove to Kanchipuram, saw the Acharya for the first time in my lifetime from midnight to 4 a.m. He spent 4 hours with me between midnight and 4 a.m. 4 a.m. I drove back to Madras, caught the flight at 6, 8:15 I was in Delhi. On several occasions thereafter, I received of his absolute, I have only a term in Sanskrit which appropriately brings it out, Vatsalya. When I was in doubt, I remember in January of 90, was it? Yes. I was offered the job of Governor of Kashmir. So I sent word to Kanchipuram to ask whether should I accept this. And he turned his face. He didn't give an answer. Next day, my brother went to see him. My brother was in Madras. And he said, I told your brother not to take up the governorship. So my brother rings up and says, did you not take it up? So I said, I got no reply. His reply was that he turned his face away. So I can give you examples like that. When there was a possibility of my going to the UN, the person who unequivocally extinguished the idea, despite the fact that my mouth was watering at the prospect, was the Acharya of Kanchi. When I thought of quitting the Election Commission job, because somehow in the early days I thought it was not my cup of tea, I remember he sent for me, sat me in front of him, chided me and said, you are not leaving the job. I can go on giving you. I received of his generosity, his munificence in an unbelievable degree.
You're watching In Conversations today with Mr. T.N. Seshan. We'll be right back.
At the VIP Design Lab, we are looking at the rare science of creating good looks. To design stunning features that make your VIP catch the eyes of the world. It takes a lot to be a VIP.
Location for this interview was provided by Hotel Ashok, New Delhi.
Welcome back. Talking about the Shankaracharya and following his passing away, is there someone else that you turn to for advice, guidance, inspiration?
Difficult question to answer because there are several others to whom one is attached, one is respectful, reverential. For a variety of reasons, say Sai Baba at Puttaparthi has come back into my life after I mean, again, very interestingly, first time I met him was in 1965 when I was collector of Madurai. He had come there. And I had not met him for 28 years thereafter. 1993, he came to preside over a music concert, which I was also concerned. So the moment he landed, he said, Seshan, you have not seen me for 28 years. I said, yes, sir. He said, it is time for you to see me now. So I went and saw him. There is this lady called Mata Amritanandamayi in Kerala. She comes from a fisher folk family. I think she's in Delhi currently, either she is already in Delhi or she's about to reach. She exudes again Vatsalya of an unbelievable order.
Do you believe in miracles?
The answer is the word miracle carries with it a certain pejorative, critical kind of slightly contemptuous tone in most cases. If that is what your question is, then my answer is faith has no reason. This is a private concern of every individual. I can't come and ask you, do you believe in God? You believe in God, you believe in God. What God do you believe in? It's between you and your Maker. So my reaction to miracles is a very carefully crafted statement which says that I have a willing suspension of disbelief. The set of words, willing suspension of disbelief, is not original. It came from the poet. So my reaction to the kind of miracles which probably you have in mind, whether Baba does it or somebody else does it, is a willing suspension of disbelief. Belief, disbelief. Think about it. Come to the conclusion that I don't have to decide whether to believe in the miracle or not believe in the miracle. Willing suspension of disbelief.
My question was really pointing to, do you feel in your life that there have been events and happenings which defy reason and logic?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you today that I would take the Chief Election Commissioner's job as something in point. My official date of birth is December 32. My real date of birth is May 33. But that's neither here nor there. Based on December 32 being my official date of birth, I would have retired on 31st of December 1990. I carry no sense of grief or even unhappiness when I say that in December 89, when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi lost the election and Mr. VP Singh became Prime Minister, I was kicked upstairs and sent to the Planning Commission. I was put to pasture. But nothing to do in the Planning Commission. I sat there for 1 year doing hardly any work. Just getting ready to retire in November, December. As I tell people, we started buying reduced quantities of provisions in order not to have too much to pack. Mr. Chandrasekhar suddenly becomes Prime Minister. One week he says, will you go to Assam as governor? I say no. Next week he says, will you go to Punjab as governor? I say no. The third week he offers me yet another job. I say no. And conversations go on whether he would make me cabinet secretary again, and I tell him no. I'm going to become a retired government servant, and the service will resent a retired person being employed as cabinet secretary. Then he says, I'll make you principal secretary to the Prime Minister. And I tell him across the table, I said, sir, I'm not an easy man to work with. Mr. Peri Shastri dies. Vinod Pandey, who displaced me as cabinet secretary, rings me up and says, we're good friends. The fact that he displaced me did not produce any enmity between us. So he says, would you like to become Chief Election Commissioner? And I say, no, I don't want to become one. They processed the file for Rama Devi, who was a law secretary and acting as Chief Election Commissioner, to be regularized as Chief Election Commissioner. And between Subramaniam Swamy, who was the law minister, and Mr. Chandrasekhar, of a midnight, Swamy comes to my house and says, we're offering you the Chief Election Commissioner's job. I plead with him, saying I won't take it. I consulted the two political people whom I had faith in, the Prime Minister. No, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, not the Prime Minister, and Mr. President. I consult my brother, who was also in the service. I consult my father-in-law, who was an outstanding professor of physics. They all give me wishy-washy answers. My father-in-law goes to the astrologer, comes back and says, the astrologer says, you won't escape this job. But every single day you spend in it, you will feel as if you're sitting on a bench of thorns. And I send somebody to Kanchi to ask the Acharya for guidance. And he says, within 30 seconds of being asked the question, he says in Tamil, of course, this is a job of great dignity, ask him to accept it. I get into the job. I mean, I don't understand this at all. Otherwise, I would have retired and gone home in December of 1990. And between December 90 and December 96, or today, a whole variety of things have conspired to give me the kind of, what shall we say, public, whatever, I don't want
The opportunity to serve.
public opportunity, which on the 1st of November 1990, I hadn't dreamt of it.
Mr. Seshan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.